Hello, everyone. Cynthia and LaShawn. Good afternoon, ladies. Glad you are joining in this afternoon. We are starting on time. Trying to give everybody a couple of minutes to join in this afternoon. We'll get started in just a few minutes. I hope everybody's having a great afternoon and that your week has been good. A lot of us have been off. I know a lot of you that work in the school system and even the government have had quite a bit of the week off. So that's been real nice to be able to have some time off. So I thank you all for joining in on this Friday afternoon. We're going to give everyone just a couple more minutes before I actually get started. If you wouldn't mind, while we have a minute or so, to go ahead and to share this live on your timeline so that others can chime in and participate. Also, I would encourage you to have a pen and paper. I'm going to give out some information. I want you to be able to record it and write it down. So we'll give them just a couple minutes to chime in, and then we're going to get started. This has been really exciting. This is actually session 4 of The Gift is Free. If you haven't had an opportunity, those of you who are out there, if you haven't had an opportunity to participate in the previous 3 sessions, you can catch them on my YouTube, which is actually Coach Kim Bond on YouTube, my YouTube channel. You can subscribe to that, and actually when I post the videos, they will instantly alert you so that you can have access to those, and then you can also catch them on my timeline as well. So what I'll do is I'm going to do a quick little, you know me, I'm going to go out and try to invite some folks. So just give me 1 second here. Let's just try and pull some people in. I know it's lunchtime and often people are getting their lunch. So I don't want to start into the meat of everything without giving other people an opportunity to chime in. So while you all are on time and being good students, let me go out here and remind a couple people that we're getting ready to start. And they should go ahead and chime in. And once again, if you could share this information on your timeline, that would be much appreciated. And invite someone. I hope you all invited your accountability partner. I've been doing a lot of talk about that, so turn that off. And making sure that you are sharing this information with other folks. All right. All right, so let's get started. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Hey, sis, I see you out there. My sister-in-law. Love you, girl. Miss Watson. Hello, hello, hello. Getting ready to get started. So I told everyone to grab a pen and a piece of paper. Actually, you should have a journal by now. Hang on, let me get mine. I wanted to share it with you all. Hold on just a second. Okay. I'm back. I brought it down. This is my old journal. This one is, gosh, this is about 11 years old, this journal here. And I wanted to show you for a specific reason how important it is to keep track of your progress in life. I've got all kind of little slips of paper and different things that I read. This is just one. I have many of them. But this is just one that, this was the one that I kind of wrote in when God was giving me a whole lot of strategy. And I wanted to make sure that I was capturing all the things. And again, you can't really see it real good, but There are notes in here from 2004, different prayers that I wrote. So it's important for you to have a journal. So I hope that you all have a journal by now, that you're not just jotting down the things that we're talking about on sheets of paper, but that you actually have a journal and that you are keeping track of everything and actually doing the homework. So welcome again to T.G.I.F. The gift is free. You see I got my t-shirt. I'm in the house today. The gift is free. This is session 4 of the coaching set, the Success Strategies coaching sessions, and I'm really excited to be able to share this information with you. This is really something that's near and dear to me, and I really do appreciate you all taking the time to chime in. So I do want to see who's out here. I want to make sure I'm welcoming folks. I don't want to leave anybody out, so I'll leave it up there for just a while. So, hey, honey, I see you. It's my husband. So this is a public forum. This is not something that is, deeply organized in a sense that you're committed to do anything. You're free to make comments as long as you are being respectful. I do use biblical principles when I'm talking about success, because it's the God kind of success. That's the only way. That's the only success I know, is the God kind. This is really designed to challenge you, not in any of your beliefs, but to challenge you to become educated and informed, and to use this information so that you can become empowered. I do not impose any religious beliefs. All I can do is tell you my story. All I can do is share with you what I know that has worked for me, and that is my assignment and my purpose. So I make no apologies to anyone for walking in my truth and being truthful to, what God has called me to do. So again, get your pen, your paper, or your journal by now, and be prepared to write some things down. So the gift is free. We talked about this in the very first session of the gift. What is the gift? In 2 Timothy verses, 2 Timothy is chapter 1, I believe, like around verse 6 or 7. It talks about we have a responsibility to stir up the gift. It is our responsibility. The thing here when I talk about biblical principles, it really is about relationship. Often we see God as being this big, far away entity that is just so, woo, and, it's, he speaks in this big audible, boom type thing. But really, actually, this is really about relationship. And in any relationship that you've ever been in, it's about an exchange. There's an expectation of you, and you have an expectation of the other person that you're in the relationship with. So really, that's really all that this is really about, is about establishing relationship with God. When we think about our purpose and why we were created, Adam and Eve, well, Adam essentially initially was created for fellowship. That was really all that he was required to do. He was required and really designed to have fellowship with God and to work the garden. That was all that Adam was designed to do. So our actual design was really so that we can have, relationship with God. So that's what these principles, when I say biblical principles, it's really about establishing relationship with God. So over in 2 Timothy, it says that we are commanded to stir up the gift, and that God has not given us a spirit of fear. So keep in mind that anytime you feel afraid, that's not from God. Now, I'm not saying that you won't feel fear and that you won't experience fear, but just know that that's not from God. That's the thing that I want to point out here. But that's not from God, because God has given us, in terms of a gift, he's giving us love, power, and a sound mind. Those are the 3 ingredients. Those are the 3 gifts that God has given every single one of us. But it's up to us to do what it says, which is to stir it up or to fan the flame. So that's what the gift really is. So I want to do a quick little recap of session 3. We talked about belief systems, and I did ask you all to do some homework, and I hope that you did it. And I'll get to that. But we talked about belief systems and how important your belief systems are to your success. And when we talk about belief systems, what they are, they're principles. And they are really rooted in either one of three areas. They're either rooted in religion, philosophy, or your moral code, like tradition. And so, when we think about what our belief systems are, they really do shape our thinking, our attitude, and even dictate our behavior. What we believe is how we respond. That's how we act. That's how we interact with other people, is how we see our lives. So the belief system is really very, very powerful. And it plays an important role in our success, because the concept of believing really is the essence of wisdom and knowledge and understanding. So therefore, believing in Jesus Christ, who is all-knowing, is where we should be putting our belief system. That should be where the foundation is for us. When we think about our belief system, what it does, it fuels our faith. It actually helps us to fulfill our purpose, because faith is really the vehicle. Remember, I gave you the analogy last week about your faith being the vehicle, but the belief system is the gas that you need to actually move that faith. And so there's a connection there between the two. Actually, your belief actually comes before the faith. Before you have faith, you need to believe that there is something bigger than you are, bigger than your thoughts, bigger than your ideas and your plans, right? So when we talk about that, we can see and we can understand that, again, that our belief system really is something that we need to have rooted and grounded in something that is certain, something that's going to yield an outcome for us. So let's get started. Let me ask you a couple of questions. How many of you out there, just a couple of you out there, but how many of you completed your homework last week? You were supposed to finish the statement that your belief system is based on one of three things: either your religion, your philosophy, or tradition. If you wouldn't mind just typing your response, if you can. What is your belief system based on? Is it your religion? Is it philosophy? Or is it tradition? Anybody? Okay. All right. So Lucille, is it based on religion? Is it based on philosophy? Or is it based on tradition? This is important because it sets the groundwork for how you move forward, how you think. Remember, I said that it shapes your attitude. Your belief system defines your personality. This is where you make decisions. And this is actually how you see your life, because we're going to get into creating a vision and envisioning. And so that's very important. So you said yours is based on tradition. So tradition pretty much is, this is the way we do it in my family. Mom and them said, grandma said, and that kind of thing. So actually, I want to challenge you to make a shift and develop a belief system that's rooted in the word. And it may go against what you have been taught to believe. It may go against your tradition. It may go against your philosophy. I know last week I gave the example of my daughter. She's in college, and she was in a class that it had something to do with LGBT and all of that. And her teacher was a homosexual. I'm not homophobic or anything like that, but she had to participate and do assignments and be introduced, if you will, to information that went against her belief system. So it was a challenge for her. And so, yes, philosophies actually also, people develop belief systems based on that as well. So the key here is knowing what yours is. And then the other question that I wanted you to answer was, and whatever your belief system is based on, what does it say about success? So if yours is based on tradition, what does your belief system say about personal success? When you think about philosophy, the belief system is that you go to school, you get degrees, and you go get a job, and you climb the corporate ladder, and that should equal success. That's that's the philosophical way. Tradition may be you go to school, you graduate from high school, like my father. He said, hey, you go get you a good government job, or you get you a job with the big three. In his mind, that was successful. That's what I was taught to believe. And then when we think about religion, well, what is success according to what God says? And that's what I want to get you over into. I want to shift your thinking about the God kind of success. So you were supposed to answer that question. And then the last question was, am I successful according to my belief system? So if your belief system is philosophical, which means go to school, get degrees, get education, get training, and climb up the ladder, are you successful today based on your philosophical beliefs? Or are you successful today based on your religious beliefs? Only you can answer that question. And then I asked why or why not. So if you didn't get a chance to do the homework, that was the homework for last week that I wanted you to answer those questions. So make sure that you do that and answer those questions and keep them in your journal so that you can reflect and refer to those. So let's get started with today's topic, which is sacrifice. That's one of those topics that we don't like to really think about. Nobody wants to make sacrifices. We are just designed, just by human nature, I believe, to just kind of want to get it the easy way. Nobody really wants to put themselves in a position where they are making sacrifices. That's not traditionally what we do, but we need to talk about sacrifices and what's involved in it, and how does sacrifices relate to the God kind of success. Remember, that's what we're striving for here. That's the only kind that lasts. Remember, I told you that there are two types of successes. You have the world success, and then you have the God kind of success. And remember, I told you that the world success, they'll give it to you and they'll take it away from you. So we are striving for the God kind of success, and that success does require sacrifice. So the idea of sacrifice is a biblical principle. So I'm going to let that sit there for just 1 second. That sacrifices, when you think about it from a biblical perspective, that theme, that principle runs throughout the entire Bible. In 1 Peter 5:10, it says, after you have suffered for a little while, the God of all grace, who imparts his blessing and favor, who called you to his own eternal glory in Christ, will himself, he'll do a couple things. He's going to complete you. He's going to confirm you. He's going to strengthen you, and he's going to establish you. Let's say that again. Christ himself will complete you. He's going to confirm you. He's going to strengthen you, and he's going to establish you. That is the God kind of success. One where you are complete, one where you have been confirmed. That means nobody can tell you that you can't do it or it can't be taken away from you. He's going to strengthen you, meaning he's going to empower and equip you with all that you need to be successful. And then he's going to establish you. That means you don't have to go out and try and be an imitation or be like someone else. You can be exactly who he designed you to be. And then the last part of that, it says making you what you ought to be. So like I just said, when we talk about sacrifices, this is a biblical principle that runs throughout the Bible. We can think about Abraham sacrificing his son Isaac. God sacrificed his son Jesus. Jesus sacrificed his life for us. And even as parents, those of you that are parents, we sacrifice for our children all the time. So sacrifices, they're always being made all the time. And when we think about what it means, when we look at the definition, it really is about, it has to be, it's an act of slaughtering or giving of an animal or a person, or surrendering a possession as an offering to God. That's what a sacrifice is. It's an offering. It's a seed, right? And so that's what we need to do. We need to consider in this particular session, start to think about, well, what am I? Have I sacrificed anything? I'm making these demands on God about wanting to be prosperous, wanting to be successful, wanting to have a lifestyle that is comfortable and pleasing. But what have I really sacrificed to have that? Do we really have a right to ask God for something and we haven't done anything? Remember, I told you in the beginning that this is about relationship. It's an exchange. You wouldn't be in a relationship with someone who did not reciprocate, if you were always giving, and they weren't giving anything back to you. So the relationship should be reciprocated when we talk about sacrifice. It says here that sacrifice is really rooted in obedience. When we go back to the examples of sacrifice that I just talked about, like Abraham sacrificing his son Isaac, that was an act of obedience. And can you imagine the turmoil that was going on inside of him as he traveled up that hill to sacrifice his son? Can you imagine what was going on inside of him, the things that he was thinking about? But there's a scripture that talks about obedience really is better than sacrifice, actually. And that's the next level. When we get beyond sacrifice, then there is a thing called obedience. And we're all called to do that as well. But right now, we're just dealing with sacrifice, okay? And it is one of the greatest sacrifices that we all have and that we all have access to is time. I often say that time, in my opinion, is one of the greatest resources that God has given to each one of us. He has given all of us the same amount in terms of in a day. We all get 24 hours. Nobody gets more. When you think about those that are highly successful, like your Oprahs and your Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, they all get 24 hours a day. They all do. What they do with the time, though dictates what the outcome is. So think about that for a moment. How do you spend your 24 hours? When you think about that resource, just really quick, as we're focusing on sacrificing and what we're willing to give up. When you think about time as a resource, how much of it are you using per day being productive outside of your work? What are you doing with your time? And when you think about it, time can be transmuted into other things. Time can be transmuted into love. Why? Because in order to cultivate relationships, you need time, right? Time can be transmuted into money. Because in order to create and come up with ideas and to think about, Thomas Edison, when he was developing, the light bulb and electricity, he had to have time to go into the lab and to develop these processes and to test and things like that. So time can turn into money. Time can turn into knowledge. How? By doing exactly what you're doing. You're giving up your time. You're sacrificing your time right now to participate in this coaching session. So time can turn into knowledge. You need to take a class, go to school. Maybe you need to read, do research. Time can turn into health. Going to the gym, being mindful of what you're eating and things like that. Taking the time to go to the different stores and get the things you need, going to the gym, exercising and being conscious like that. Again, so time is one of the greatest resources that we have. And it's actually one of the biggest sacrifices. I'm sacrificing my time right now by, putting together this session. I don't just come on and talk off the top of my head. I have notes here that I have actually done the research, and I want to make sure that I'm giving to you information that is going to be useful, that is thought-provoking. I put time and effort into it. So I made the sacrifice, taking time away from my family or my leisure to research on the computer, put it together in an organized way so that I could give it to you in an excellent way. So you're going to always make a sacrifice. Anytime you are seeking to be successful, making a sacrifice is going to be part of that equation. So how you use it determines your outcomes. And time is often wasted, on just fruitless conversations. Television now, we have technology and TV. I don't know how many channels you get on the cable thing now. They got the stick or whatever that they put in the TV now. I mean, it's just endless. It used to be back in the day, TV went off I think at midnight, TV would go off and that was it. You didn't get any more television. You were forced to go to sleep or read or do something else. But now we have so many distractions and opportunities to be impacted and to waste resources that you have to be really thoughtful and conscious and aware of really what you're doing with your time. So that's something that you have to really think about. I have coined a phrase, and it says leisure time is earned. You can waste time on too much leisure. You can't always be, hanging out with friends and relaxing and just on chill mode or turning up or whatever it is that, you tend to spend your time on. Too much is too much. And there is such a thing. You do have to be conscious of how you use your time. And again, sacrificing time is really probably one of the biggest things that, in order to have the God kind of success, that you're going to have to really consider. How am I using my time? Remember, at the very first session, I asked the question about how many of you had participated in any personal development, read a book cover to cover that wasn't a religious book, just a personal development book, or attended a workshop. Again, those are sacrifices of your time and your resources. So commitment and sacrifice. These are the two things that really follow vision and goals and the path to success. You're going to have to make a commitment to the process, and you're going to have to be willing to make a sacrifice. Remember, I have been telling my own personal story about, when God called me off of my job and he called me to serve individuals with disabilities and that were disadvantaged, individuals that had been incarcerated or had substance abuse issues, helping them to either get established or reestablished into the workforce. And at the time I left my job, I didn't know that. I was just looking within, using my gifts and my talents, and I was giving them back to God to use. I had no idea of the why behind the call off of my job. But it was when he called me off, I didn't understand why. I didn't know why. I didn't question. I was just obeying. And we just talked about that obedience is better than sacrifice. So I sacrificed my job. I sacrificed my income, what I knew to be security. I sacrificed that to obey what God had called me to do. And, one of the things I forgot to mention in our last session about when he called me off my job, he told me that he had blessed me with these talents and these gifts, and he wanted me to give them to this particular group of people, those that had been disadvantaged. He said, and the why was because the world has thrown them away. The world overlooks them. The world discards them. And that's not God. That's not love. That's not God, but that's the world system. If you're not perfect, and whatever perfect is in the world's eye, they don't want anything to do with you. So he said this population of folk had been thrown away. They have been discarded. And I want you to have them to reaffirm who they are based on the scripture. So he gave me, I told you, 12 scriptures, and I paraphrased them, and I turned them into affirmations, and I still use those affirmations today. We're going to get into affirmations. I'm going to show you how to write affirmations that are impactful and very powerful, where you can actually see some change and some results. But he said, I want you to have them to reaffirm who they are. Your words really have power. They're very powerful. The power of life and death is in your tongue. You have the power to create and destroy with your words. And so I did that, and I still do that. I use the same affirmations today for myself personally, and I still use them for my clients. So that was the why behind the call. I didn't know that at the time. So I have gotten into, at that time, this, God and I were in a relationship, and there's this exchange going back and forth. I obeyed, I sacrificed, and I obeyed. But what I understand now, what I'm going to get into, is that, sacrifice, there are levels of sacrifice. It's always about God wanting to get more to us, so he has to require more. You know, he wants to get more, and he requires more. And there's another scripture that says, to whom much is given, much is required. We can't have big goals and big plans and big dreams, and we're not willing to give God big sacrifices. So you have to establish in your mind, settle in your mind that whatever it takes, I'm going to, number one, I'm going to look within. I'm going to use the talents that God has given me. I'm going to surrender, if you will, all of my selfish plans, my goals, my dreams. I'm going to give those back. I'm going to do away with those. I'm going to look inside, and I'm going to use the gifts and the talents that God has given me to help others. And I'm going to allow God to give me his plans, his goals, and his dreams. Because remember, that's the God kind of success. You may have wanted to go to law school. Let's just say, and we know people like this. They go off and they get these degrees. They go to school. They sacrifice a lot of time and money and resources. They go and get educated, and they don't even use it. They have no, and then they find out, I wanted to be a chef. That's what I really am passionate about, and that's what I'm gifted and I'm talented doing. And they ended up, having this law degree hanging on the wall, but actually being a chef is actually what their talent and their gifts are. So we want to make sure that when we get into this exchange and this relationship, and we're moving into the God kind of success, that we are sensitive enough, and that we are willing actually to surrender our goals, our plans, and our dreams. I didn't know, you couldn't have told me I'd be doing this in a million years. This was not I wanted to be a news reporter. This was not something that I thought, I didn't even know this existed. Remember, I told you, the friend said, hey, what you do, we need. And I had no idea that such a thing existed. So you have to be willing to surrender your goals, your plans, and your dreams so that God can give you his. Those are the ones that's going to give you the success that you need. It's much, what you have may seem great, it may seem good, but what he has is so much better. Remember, I told you when I was on my job, and he said, now I gave you this promotion, but if you trust me, I have something that's so much better than this. He didn't say what. I just said, yes, I'll take it. Again, that's the obedience. So you've got sacrifice and obedience kind of all wrapped up into one. And so our commitment is defined as a promise. We have to be loyal, and we have to be committed. You got to be committed to this. Let me tell you, I'm going to get into my story a little bit here, but you're going to get talked about. You might get ridiculed. You might get shamed. People may call you crazy. All of that. You got to be willing to take it, and so, when you talk about being loyal, that's actually, for me, loyalty is one of my core values. I've spent some time, you all know that I'm in my own separate executive coaching, which is a 12-year program. But for me, loyalty is one of my core values. I'm deeply loyal. I'm committed to loyalty, and I expect loyalty. And it's almost like it kind of gets me riled up when people that I expect to be loyal are not loyal to me. So I'm learning to balance that. But that is one of my core values, and that's why I said doing the self-assessment is really, really important, because you need to understand how you are designed and how you're wired, and what is going to be required of you as these sacrifices. And what is it that you're willing and that you're going to be able to sacrifice, right? So loyalty is one of my core values, and I know this, like I said, because I've assessed myself. And what it is, loyalty is faithfulness, it is obedience, it is a bond, it's a devotion, it's consistency and dedication. So all of this is sort of wrapped up into one. So that is the requirement for the God kind of success, is, being willing to make the sacrifice and to commit to the process, and being loyal to that. You have to know within your heart of hearts that this is what it is that you are supposed to be doing when God reveals it to you. You cannot put a demand on prosperity and lifestyle and finances and even happiness, and you haven't sacrificed anything. This is about relationship. It's about an exchange. And believe it or not, God will honor your sacrifice of love. He will honor that when he sees and see you sacrificing. Just like I said about the seed earlier, in a couple sessions ago, about, sowing the seed and God giving you that download and the strategy, he will definitely honor his word. So being established and operating in your purpose is definitely going to cost you something. So when we talk about success, my story is that it superseded my desire for comfort when God told me the why. I was living in my own place. I had me and my children. I was single mother, and I was so sold out to the call and the purpose for which God had called me to. It didn't matter what it costed. So I knew that in order to really be fully committed to the call, that I would have to make some deep sacrifices. And one of the sacrifices was that I decided to move in with a family member. I packed up all of my things. I had got new furniture. I packed up everything and put it into storage. And my family member said, hey, you know what? I got an idea. You and the kids, you all can come and live with me while you build your business. And this can be great, minimal rent, whatever the case may be. And I was like, wow, this is absolutely awesome. This will give me the foot that I need to, jumpstart my process here of building my business and fulfilling the cause. So I moved in with that family member only to get put out. So here we go. It's going to hurt. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you're going to have to sacrifice literally until it hurts. And you're going to have to do it with a good attitude, not complaining, not murmuring, not woe is me. Because let me tell you why. Because it's not about you. Others are watching how you go through sacrifice. Believe it or not, people are watching, and believe it or not, some are looking for you to fail. And so as God's representatives, we are the testimony. How we go through is not really the issue. It's how we come on out of there. And so, yes, it's going to hurt. You're going to get talked about. So me and my children, we moved in with this family member. We stayed there less than 30 days. And they said, you know what? Y'all got to go. Now, it wasn't that we did anything. Actually, it was the contrary. There were other things going on within that dynamic, that situation, that had nothing to do with us. And so we found ourselves having to go somewhere. So another family member said, hey, guess what? I got a basement. If you all would like to come and live in, you can stay in my basement. So at that point, I stopped and I said, now, God, I said, now, what are we doing here? Because, see, this looked like I'm going backwards. This doesn't look like I'm being successful here. And let me tell you what God told me. He said, you know what? He said, going into the basement is not a sign of failure, but is actually putting you closer to your destiny. Now, I'm going to park right here for a minute because I told you, I believe in the last session, that we are moving over into the supernatural here, into the miraculous. So I'm operating at this point of not just sacrifice anymore. I'm operating at the level of obedience. Let me back it up a little bit. Before I moved out of my home and into the in with that family member, the first one, there was a couple of things that God told me. He said what he called me to was extreme obedience, meaning I just didn't get a pass. Some people could do, whatever, and it looked like it was fun and everything would be okay. I couldn't do it. I had to live an obedient life. And he also said, I have called you to excellence, meaning everything that I did, it had to be of excellence. I just didn't get the opportunity to be, half cocked or just kind of like, a little on the slippery side. Everything had to be done with excellence. Why do you think that is? Because I was representing him. Now, this may seem a little far-fetched for some. You may not be able to even grasp these concepts, and I'm trying to give it to you in a way that makes sense to you by telling my story and connecting it with the biblical principles. But when we think about who God is, he is a God of excellence, right? He is a God that he cannot lie. He operates in truth and integrity. He is the truth. So why would I get a pass if I'm going to represent God and have the God kind of success? Well, it would only be fitting that I would have to operate in excellence and that I would have to operate in truth, right? So here I am having this conversation with God, and he says, it may look like you're failing, but actually it's putting you closer to your destiny. I said, okay, God, I'm going to go. So I went and I bought 2 industrial strength blow-up mattresses. And now this was a real basement. let me just say here. This wasn't a walkout with Berber carpet. No, it wasn't that. It was a basement with water bugs and centipedes. It was a basement that had the clothesline on one side. It was not a finished basement, okay? I want to be very clear. I want you to get this visual. I've had people who know my story say, you really should have taken pictures because people won't even believe that you lived like this, you and your children. I had 4 children at the time. So I go out. I buy 2 industrial queen size blow up mattress. The kind that you just turn the button. I got the deluxe. You just turn the button and it automatically inflate. I cleaned that basement. I went to my storage unit and I got one of my big area rugs and I cleaned the basement. I mopped it up, cleaned it up, knocked the cobwebs down. There was a TV down there. I laid out the area rug and created, as best I could. A comfortable space for me and my children, but we live dormitory style. For those of you who have gone to college, that means you don't have any privacy. There was none. It was, pass me the lotion. It was one of those kind of things. There was no privacy. I remember that when I wanted to pray, I had bought myself some earplugs because my kids would be there watching TV or doing homework or whatever, and I still had to pray and have my time with God. I would put earplugs in and go in the corner and kneel. That's how I had my fellowship with God. There was no privacy. And at this particular time, I was on aid. I was getting unemployment from my job, and I was getting aid. And I was happy because I was free. I was free. I wasn't in man's system anymore. I was doing what God had called me to do. And by this time, I told you I had met with the state. I was making those connections and things. I was starting to get a little movement. So let me back it up. When I moved in and this family member said, you can come and you can live in my basement. They said, well, how much time do you need? Now, they kind of run a little tight ship, at their household. So it was not one of those little loose things. Oh, come on. And y'all just take all the time you need. No, it was how much time you going to need. So I rambled off 6 months, not knowing what I was going to do to get out of that. Remember, I'm not operating in man's systems. I'm not getting a paycheck. I can't establish pay my salary or anything because I'm now working independent as a business owner. I started getting a little business from the state. They were making a few little referrals, but it was not enough for me to live on, nor could I go out and go get a place. I couldn't substantiate any of that. So I was on aid. And I was doing my workshops and, with a few clients here and there. And part of the training services that I would provide a continental breakfast, and I would also provide lunch. So let's look at this. Just get the visual of what I'm telling you about sacrifice. I'm unemployed, technically, right? I'm on aid. I had a bridge card. You all know what that is. Those of you out here in Michigan, I was getting government assistance, right? I was taking my bridge card and I was feeding my family and my clients. We talked a couple weeks ago about God multiplying and doing a supernatural multiplication on your seed, on your giving. Don't ask me how. Not only did I use that bridge card to feed my family and my clients, I remember I was trying to buy, I had attempted to buy like a cheaper brand, Aldi, products, and God said, remember I told you, we do everything in excellence. So the same food I was getting from Kroger and all of that, the supermarket, I fed to them. It was the same food. Not only was I able to feed them, and let me tell you why it's so important to obey God, because on the other end of that is, see, he uses us to be a blessing to other people. I told you about angelic workers, how when God have called you to do something, he has assigned people to help you to do what he's called you to do, so that you can be a blessing to someone, and someone, it's a process, like a chain, if you will. So here I am feeding my clients, and they were eating good. I mean, they had lasagna and salad and sandwiches. It was all kind of things. I would prepare their meals, run and do the training. We would take a break. Where I was living was close to where where I would train at the time, which was at the Matrix Human Services on Gratiot and 7 Mile. And I would run back to the house, get the food, the catering pan, all that. I had all that, and I would run back up there and have it all set out. But I had some angelic workers helping me with this, but I would set the food out and allow them to eat, and we would continue with the training, so it looked effortlessly, but God was teaching me about sacrifice. And a couple of times, a couple of the clients had asked if they could take the food because they lived in a shelter, and that meal would really be the only real meal that they would get for the day. And so I had a client one time that was really cold, like it has been here the last few days, and he was diabetic. And he says, I'm so glad that you have this continental breakfast, because I didn't get a chance. I wanted to be here on time, and I didn't get a chance to take my medication, and I have to take it with food. And I'm so glad he took the bus. He said, I'm so glad that you have this food here so that I can take my medication. So obedience is better than sacrifice. But I'm doing all this, and I'm living in the basement. Me and my kids, we sleeping on blow-up mattresses. But I did not complain. It wasn't a woe is me. I didn't know how we were going to come out. I had absolutely no idea. So we're living in the basement, and when I was in that basement, let me tell you, when you get into this real deep relationship with God, and he's talking and giving strategy, and you're obeying and you're doing things, see, then he can give you more, and then he can do more in you really than you really can imagine. So I'm living in the basement. I'm building my business. I'm making connections and doing things. I'm working with my clients, but it wasn't enough for me to actually go out on my own yet. But something else happened while I was in that basement. He birthed ministry. Like I said, I'm not a Bible scholar. I've never been to theology school. That's man's system. Okay? I'm not saying that it's not useful. I'm just saying that whom God calls, he equips. I told you earlier, I said in that scripture in 1 Peter 5:10, he says that the God of all grace, who imparts his blessing, he has called you to his own eternal glory in Christ. He himself will complete, confirm, strengthen, and establish. You don't have to run around doing all these things. If he called you to do it, he's going to equip you to do it. So here I am now in the basement. I'm running my business. I'm raising my kids. We're just living dormitory style. It became very miraculous. It was during the winter. It was really cold like it is now. I'm wrapped in blankets and stuff. And I remember that the neighbor had blown his snow against the house. The way the houses were made, the driveways were the house. You have the driveway and the house was right next door. Very little space in between. And as the snow started to melt, one of the walls started to leak. And I didn't know. I was sitting at the computer, and one day I put my foot down. It was wet. I said, wait a minute. So this is where the supernatural comes in. I spoke to that wall. I spoke to the water and I said, you'll never leak again. Not while I'm down here. Me and my kids, you'll never leak again. And this is the honest to God truth. That wall never leaked again. It was during this time in the basement that God had anointed and equipped me to do inner healing, to pray for individuals that were deeply hurt on the inside, deep hurts from childhood, giving me the ability to be able to pray people through those things. I had no idea. I'm just obeying, He called me off my job. I just want to write resumes and coach people. No, I had no idea that all of these other gifts and talents would come out. But remember, I told you when I went in and I paused, I said, now God, now what we doing now? He said, listen, this is putting you closer to your destiny. Going into this basement. It blew my mind. I had a friend who had some experiences, and I'm not going to go into any detail, but she had suffered some traumatic experiences, and she had come to town, and she came to visit, and we were down in the basement, and I said, just let me pray for you, and it was one of those things where God set her free from all those years of that traumatic incident that she had experienced. And so I say all of that to say that while your eyes may be focused on something that's, really, really small, He wants to do some really big things in you and through you. But you must be willing to make the sacrifice. We lived in that basement for 6 months. We didn't complain. My children and I, we developed a bond that was unbreakable because we were together all of the time, all day. I remember during that time also that as God was preparing me and allowing me the leisure time that I needed to meditate and to clear my mind and my thinking, I would go to the health club and to the spa. I had a membership, and I would go there, and I started to feel guilty. I felt like I should be doing something. And, God said, no, you're doing exactly what I need you to do because the work is coming. But right now, there is a season of preparation, and that was part of my preparation. And that experience in the basement was really for non-believers. There were some doubters. There were non-believers. I was talked about. Oh, Kim, she done lost everything. She must be on drugs. She's got those kids living in the basement. What is wrong with her? And the funny thing is, you would never know that I lived in the basement. It was almost like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace. I didn't have the smell of smoke on me. I looked good. I was always dressed impeccably. There was everything done in excellence. I didn't complain. I didn't walk around saying, oh my God, we're living in the basement. What am I going to do? Being nervous. Also at that particular time, God was using me in ministry more too. My prayer life was developed. He was using me in ministry. I was able to connect ministerially with some folks who were able to pour into me. And so it became more than about my ability to write resumes and to coach people. It was so much more than that happening in my life. Real quick, and I'm almost out of time here, but I remember I told you I was getting a bridge card. I was on aid, and I remember that no, that wasn't in the basement. I was thinking about when they put money on my card. I'll get to that later. It's a funny story. That's one of these incredible things. But the point here is that you must be willing to make a sacrifice. And, that was a time that was difficult for me and my children only because we were just, we had to give up some comforts for a short period of time. I didn't know how we were coming out, and I'm going to tell that in our next coaching session how it all came about. But, it was just one of those things that was necessary for the journey and for the process. Those blow-up mattresses are not designed to sleep on every day. They get these little pinholes in them, and I wouldn't know this if I did not have this experience. They get these little bitty holes in them. You can't even see that the holes are there. I remember my daughter at the time, the youngest, she was about 1. I think she was 1. And we would go to sleep on the mattress. It'd be nice and firm. And we'd wake up and my baby would be lost in the mattress. I mean, it would be all sunk in and caved in. And what I ended up doing is I had to get a lighter and go around the mattress. And my other daughter, I would say, okay, have the duct tape ready, you know. And as soon as the light flickered, the flame flickered, we knew it was a hole there. She'd take that duct tape and pow, pop it on that mattress. I mean, we had taped them all together. This was my journey. This was my experience. And this is why we don't judge, because you never know what a person has gone through to obtain the successes that they have obtained. It may look good and it may look like, oh, wow, I would love to do that. But you have no idea what they sacrificed to get there. So, you know, we're just about out of time, but part of what I want you to do for your homework this week, I want you to get caught up, number one, on the things that we talked about in the previous sessions, but I would like you to do some reflecting, you know, on what it is that you are willing to sacrifice. You know, is it time? It might even be a relationship that's not being fruitful, that's not healthy. Is it money? What is it? You know, you have to be willing to make the sacrifice. Again, time, money, your goals, your plans, your dreams. Give those on back to God and say, God, let me get your stamp of approval on these things that I think I want to do. I'm not sure, but I want you to approve them, because he may tell you to do something different. Now, that's my story. This is my story that I'm sharing. I'm not saying that you will have to, you know, sell your home or whatever. He may call you to do that, though. This is why we don't get attached to things, because he may tell you to give it away. Let me tell you real quick, while I was in that basement, I still receive gifts to this day. All the time. I just got a gift a couple weeks ago. Somebody sent me something very beautiful that they knew they just blessed me. When I was in that basement, I told you that ministry was coming out of me, and I'm just doing what I'm told to do, being obedient. And someone came to me and said, you know what? I got something I want to give to you. I said, okay. They came back to that particular Bible study I was in the next week, and they gave me a full-length mink coat. Full length. I didn't ask. I had no idea. She said, you know, this used to be my mother. She passed away, and you know, I have a couple of them, and I want to just bless you. And she gave it to me. And I was just, when I took it home, you know, at the time, this particular family member wasn't quite the believer. And they were just shocked that someone would just give me a mink coat. Someone had given me a beautiful tallit, which is a prayer shawl that they had gotten from Israel. I get gifts and things all the time. As long as I stay obedient to the call and the purpose that God has placed on my life, I don't have to beg. I don't have to position myself to be in a losing seat. You know, when you sacrifice and you obey God, you are a winner. That's the bottom line. You are going to win. This type of God kind of success equals winning. There is no doubt about it. So I want you to do some reflecting over the week. I want you to jot down, to get a journal if you don't have one, and to jot down, what are you willing to sacrifice? That's basically the question that you have to ask yourself, because in order to have the God kind of success, you will make a sacrifice. And I'm going to tell you, it's not going to be comfortable. You know, when you think about what Jesus did and what Abraham had to do and what God did, you know, the sacrifices, you know, to whom much is given, much is required. So you have to be willing to make some sacrifices. So we are just about out of time. I hope that you enjoyed, this coaching session. Again, this was all about what it is that you are willing to sacrifice to have the God kind of success. Please share this information on your timeline. I encourage you to take advantage of these nuggets that I'm sacrificing my time, and I'm obeying what God told me to do. I don't care if it's one person on this live. I'm going to do it with excellence every single week, because that's what he told me to do. I've learned to not question God, to just do what it is that he has asked us to do. So I hope that you were able to learn something from this particular coaching session this week. Remember, you can always email me. This hour is just really not enough time, for me to really get to you the information that I want to get to you, but I don't want to overwhelm anyone, and I want you to feel that this is valuable. So you can always email me with your questions or your comments to Kimberly@CoachKimbine.com. And if you know someone that didn't catch it or whatever, you can always refer them to my YouTube, which is Coach Kimbine. And I'm on Instagram. I encourage you all to just share the information I put out. I started putting out these success tips on Facebook. Please feel free to share them. So again, I hope that you enjoy this information, and I hope that you're going to have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. I hope that I've given you something to think about, to ponder, and I'm going to continue this journey with you. I want you to have the God kind of success, and remember that the gift is free. See, the gift is free. This is all free. He's trying to get something to you. So don't get hung up on those crazy belief systems. Lay them on out there, say, God, help me to get my belief system together so that I can have the success that you want me to have, and to challenge yourself, because he is definitely waiting for you to step into your purpose. There are other people, other lives attached to what he has called you to do. Remember, it's not about you. It's about others. So again, this is your success coach, Kim Bond, coming to you live on this wintry Friday afternoon, and wishing that you would have a wonderful weekend and a great rest of your afternoon. Take care.